I just got some terrible news. There's been a murder on the ranch. I know I shouldn't blame myself. I mean, a dog is only a dog. He can't be everywhere at once. When I took this job as head of ranch security, I knew that I was only flesh and blood. 4 legs, a tail, a couple of ears. Pretty nice kind of nose that the women really go for. 2 bushels of hair and another half bushel of Mexican sandburrs. You add that all up and you don't get Superman. Just me, good old easygoing Hank, who worked hard.
In a quarter mile, turn left onto Texas 36 North.
No cooperation from anyone else around here. I'm not complaining. I knew this wouldn't be an easy job. It took a special kind of dog. Strong, fearless, dedicated, and above all, smart. Obviously, Drover didn't fit. The job fell on my shoulders. It was my destiny. I couldn't escape the broom of history that swept
Turn
through me.
left onto Texas 36
Anyway,
North.
I took the job. Head of ranch security. Gee, I was proud of that title. Just the sound of it made my tail wag. But now this. A murder right under my nose. I know I shouldn't blame myself, but I do. I got the report.
Continue on Texas 36 North for 1 mile.
The night patrolling the northern perimeter of ranch headquarters. I'd heard some coyotes yapping up there, and I went up to check it out. I told Drover where I was going, and he came up lame all of a sudden. Said he needed to rest his right front leg. I went alone. Didn't find anything. The coyotes stayed out in the pasture. I figured there were 2, maybe 3 of them. They yapped for a couple hours, making fun of me, calling me ugly.
In half a mile, use the right lane to take the Texas 322 loop north ramp to I-20.
I'm no dummy. There's a thin line between heroism and stupidity, and I try to stay on the south side of it. I didn't go out and fight, but I answered on bark for bark, yap for yap, name for name. The coyote hasn't been built to get
Use the right lane to take the Texas 322 loop north ramp.
A little before dawn, Loper, one of the cowboys of this outfit, stuck his head out the door and bellered.
In a quarter mile, merge onto Texas 322 loop north.
I guess he thought there was only one coyote out there. They kept it up, and I gave it back to him. Next time Loper came to the door, he was armed. He fired a gun into the air and squalled. Something about how he couldn't sleep around here with all the dang noise. I agreed. Would you believe it? Them coyotes yipped louder than ever, and I had no choice but to give it back to him. Loper came back out of porch and fired another shot.
Continue for 1.5 miles.
This one came so close to me that I heard the hum. Loper must have lost his bearings or something, so I barked louder than ever to give him my position and, to let him know that I was out there protecting the ranch. The next bullet just darn near got me. I felt the wind of it as it went past. That was enough for me. I shut her down for the night. If Loper couldn't aim any better than that, he was liable to hurt somebody. I lay low for a while, hiding in the shelter belt, until I was sure the artillery had gone back to bed. Then I went down for a roll in the sewer, cleaned up, washed myself real good, came out feeling refreshed and ready to catch up on my sleep. I trotted down to the gas tanks and found Drover curled up in my favorite spot.
In half a mile, use the left lane to merge onto East Overland Trail.
Right way for the night patrol. He didn't want to move, so I went to sterner measures. Put some bags on him. That moved him out, and he didn't show no signs of lameness either. I have an idea that where Drover is lamest is between his ears. I did my usual bedtime ritual of walking in a tight circle around my bed until I found just exactly the spot I wanted. And I flopped down. That felt so good. I wiggled around and finally came to rest with all 4 paws sticking up in the air. I closed my eyes and had some wonderful twitching dreams about, I don't recall exactly the subject matter, but Most likely they were about Beulah, the neighbor's collie. I dream about her a lot. What a woman! Makes my old heart pound just to think about her. Beautiful brown and white hair, big eyes, nose that tapers down to a point. Not quite as good as mine, but so what? And nice ears that flap when she runs. Only trouble is that she's crazy about spotted bird dog. Without a doubt, the ugliest
Continue on East Overland Trail for 1.5 miles.
What could be uglier than a spotted, short-haired dog with a long, skinny tail? And what could be dumber or more worthless than a dog that goes around chasing birds? They call him Plato. I don't know why, except maybe because his eyes look like plates half the time. Empty plates. He don't know a cow from a sow, but do you think that makes him humble? No, sir. He thinks that bird chasing is hot stuff. What really hurts, though, is that Beulah seems to agree. Don't understand that woman, but I dream about her a lot. Anyway, where was I? Under the gas tanks, catching up on my sleep. All at once, Drover was right there beside me, jumping up and down and giving off that high-pitched squeal of his that kind of bores into your eardrums. You can't ignore him when he does that. Well, I throwed open one eye, kept the other one shut so that I could get some halfway sleep. Will you please shut up? Hank! Oh, Hank, it's just terrible. You wouldn't believe it. Oh, my gosh, wake up. I think it's tracks.
In a quarter mile, take I-20 West exit on the left.
I throwed open the other eye, pushed myself up, and went nose to nose with the noisemaker. Quit hopping around. Quit making all that racket. Hold still and state your business. Okay, Hank. All right, I'll try. He tried and more.
Take the I-20 West exit on the left.
Get the message across. Oh, Hank, there's been a killing right here on the ranch, and we slept through it. Huh?
Continue on I-20 West for 50 miles.
And the word killing sent a jolt clean out to the end of my tail. Who's been killed? They hit the chicken house, Hank. I don't know how they got in, but they did. Busted in there and killed one of those big-legged hens. Killed her dead, Hank, and oh, the blood. Well, let's settle it. I had no choice but to go back on duty. A lot of dogs would have just turned over and gone back to sleep. But I take this stuff pretty serious. We trotted up to the chicken house, and Drover kept jumping up and down and talking. I found some tracks down by the creek. I'm sure they wanted to kill me, Hank. I'm just sure they did. What kind of tracks? Coyote. We reached the chicken house, and sure enough, there was the hen lying on the ground. She was stone dead. I walked around the body, sniffing it good, and checking the signs. I noticed the position of the body and memorized every detail. The hen was lying on her left side, pointing towards the northeast, with one foot out, and the other one curled up under her wing. Her mouth was open, and it appeared to me that she had lost some tail feathers. I'm beginning to see the pattern. What? Tell me, Hank, who done it? Not yet. Where'd you see them tracks? There weren't any tracks around the corpse. Ground was too far. Drover took off in a run, and I followed him down into the brush along the creek. He stopped and pointed to some fresh tracks in the mud. There they are, Hank. Perfect. Are you proud of me? I pushed him aside and studied the sign. Looked it over real careful and sniffed it. Headed to full treatment. Then I raised up. Okay, I've got it now. It's all clear. Them's coon tracks, son, not coyote. I can tell by the scent. Coons must have attacked while I was out on patrol. They're sneaky. You gotta watch them every minute. Drover squinted at the tracks. Are you sure those are coon tracks? They sure look like coyote to me. You don't go by the looks, son. You go by the smell. This nose of mine don't lie. If it says coon, you better believe there's a coon out at the end of them tracks. And I'm fixing to clean house. Stay behind me and don't get hurt. I'm afraid I'm waiting for the clothes. In the heat of a chase, all my senses come alive and point like a blazing arrow towards the enemy. In a way, I felt sorry for the coon, even though he'd committed a crime and become my mortal enemy. With me on his trail, the little guy just didn't have a chance. One of the disadvantages of being as big and deadly as I am is that you sometimes find yourself in sympathy with the other guy. But part of being head of range security is learning to ignore that kind of emotion. I mean, to hold down this job, you have to be cold and hard. The scent was getting stronger all the time, and it didn't smell exactly like anything I'd come across before. Once I saw it, I stopped dead still and drove her. The dumb bunny ran right into me and almost had a heart attack. I guess he thought it was a giant coon or something. It's hard to say what he thinks. I gets mushed there fighting. Something. That smells real strong now. What's that? What do you think? I glanced back and drove him. Shaky with fear. You ready for some combat experience? Yes. Alright, here's the plan. I'll jump in and try to get him behind the neck. You come in the second wave and take what you can. If you run away like you did last time, I'll sweep the corral with you and give you a whooping you won't forget. Alright, let's move out. I crouched down and crept forward. Every muscle in my highly conditioned body taut and ready for action. 5 feet, 4 feet, 3 feet, 2. I sprang through the air and right in the middle of the biggest porcupine I ever saw. It was kind of a short fight. Coming down, I seen them quills aimed up at me and tried to change course. I don't feel so good in midair. I lit right in the middle of him. Bam! He slapped me across the nose. His hail sure did hurt too, brought tears to my eyes. I hollered for Drover to launch the second wave, but he had disappeared. Porcupine took another shot at me, but I dodged, tore up half an acre of brush, and got the heck out of there. As I limped back up to the house on 10 cushioned feet, my thoughts went back to the murder scene and the evidence I had committed to memory. It's clear now. The porcupine had had nothing at all to do with the murder because porcupines don't eat anything but trees. Drover had found the first set of tracks he encountered and had started all about coyotes. I had been duped into believing a runt. Yes, all clear. I had no leads, no clues, no idea who killed the hen. What I did have was a face for porcupine quills, as well as several in my paws. I limped up to the yard gate. As you might expect, Drover was nowhere to be seen. I sat down beside the gate and waited for Loper to come out and remove the quills. A lot of dogs would have set up a howl and moan. Not me. I figured that it ought to be a maturity. He ought to be able to stand some pain. It just went with the territory. So I waited and waited, and Loper didn't come out. Quills were beginning to hurt. The end of my nose throbbed. Felt like a balloon. Made me all restless, but I didn't whine or howl. The barn cat came along just then, and his tail stuck straight up in the air and was rubbing along the fence coming my way. He had his usual dumb cat expression, and I could hear him purring. He came closer. I glared at him. Scram, cat. He stopped, arched his back, and rubbed up against the fence. What's that on your face? Nothing you need to know about. He rubbed and purred, then reached up and sharpened his claws on a post. You sure look funny with all those things sticking out of your nose. You're gonna look funny if you don't run along and mind your own business. I'm not in the mood to take any of your trash right now. He grinned and kept coming. started rubbing up against my leg. I decided to ignore him, look the other way, and pretend he wasn't there. Sometimes that's the best way to deal with a cat. Let him know that you won't allow him to get you stirred up. You have to be firm with cats. Give them the slightest encouragement, and they'll try to move in and take over. He rubbed and purred. I ignored him, told myself he wasn't there. Then he brought that tail up and flicked it across the end of my nose. I curled my lip and growled. He looked up at me. He did it again. It tickled my nose, made my eyes water. I had to sneeze. I tried to fight it back, but couldn't hold it. I gave a big sneeze. Then Quill sent fire shooting to my nose. Kind of inflamed me, don't you see? And all at once, I lost my temper. I made a snap at him, but he was gone, over the fence and into Sally Mae's yard. Just sort of off limits to us dogs, even though Pete can come go as he pleases, which ain't fair. The fence between us, Pete knew he was safe. He threw a hump into his back and hissed. And what was I supposed to do then? Sing him a lullaby? Talk about the weather? No, I barked. I barked hard and loud, just to let the cat know that he couldn't get me stirred up. The door opened, and Lover stepped out of the porch. He was wearing jeans and had another shirt, no hat and no boots, and had a cup of coffee in his hand. Hank, leave the cat alone. He stopped and stared at me.
There's a stalled vehicle ahead.
The cat alone? Pete grinned and walked off, purring and switching the tip of his tail back and forth. I could have killed him. I whined and wagged my tail and went over to the gate where Roper could see my nose. Looked up at the side, took a drip of coffee, swatted a mosquito on his arm, looked up at the clouds again. I whined louder and jumped on the gate so that he couldn't miss seeing that old Hank, his loyal friend and protector of the ranch, had been wounded in the line of duty. Don't jump on the gate! He yawned and went back into the house. 20 minutes later, he came out again, dressed for the day's work. I had waited patiently. My nose was really pounding by this time, but I didn't complain. When he came out, I jumped up to greet him. You know what he said? Hank, you stink. Have you been in the sewer again? And he walked on down to the corral. Didn't see the quills in my nose. At last he saw me. We were down at the corral. Shook his head and muttered, Hank, when are you going to learn about pork pies? How many times do we have to go through this? Drogan never gets quills. And Lover just didn't land. Nobody understood. He got her fence fire on the head. Threw a leg lock on me and started pulling. It hurt. Oh, it hurt. Oh, he was pulling out my whole nose. I took it without a whimper. Well, I whimpered a bit, and we got her done. Lover put it behind the ears. There, now you try to away porcupines. He stood up and took off his jeans. He noticed a wet spot. His eyes came out, and they looked kind of wrathful. Did you do that? I was well on my way to tall timber when he threw the pliers at me. I couldn't help it. I didn't do it on purpose. The quills just got to hurting so bad that I had to let something go. Was it my fault that he had me in a leg lock and got in the way? Make one little mistake around this ranch, and they'll nail you to the wall. I laid low for a while, hid in the post pile and nursed my nose. It was about 10 o'clock when Sally Mae discovered the murdered hen. I debated for a long time about what to do next. Should I hide out and play it safe, or go going down to the chicken house and get blamed for something that wasn't my fault. Curiosity got the best of me, and I trotted down to see what was going on. Grover was already there when I arrived, wagging his stub tail and trying to win a few points with his loyal dog routine. I walked up to him and said, out of the corner of my mouth, "Thanks for all the help this morning. I really appreciate it." I think he missed the note of irony because he said, with a straight face, he said, "That's okay, Frankie. It wasn't nothing." Dang right, it wasn't nothing. Over was stealing over again, studying the signs. Sally Mae stood nearby, looking mighty unhappy about the dead chicken. Over pushed his hat to the back of his head and stopped. His eyes went straight to me and Drover. Only when I glanced around, I noticed that Drover had disappeared. It was just me standing in the spotlight. "Hank, if you hadn't been out working all night, you might have been at this. Why do you think we keep you around here?" I hung my head and tucked my tail. "Do you have any idea how much money it costs to keep you dogs around here? Seems that every time I turn around, I'm having to buy another 50-pound sack of dog food. That stuff's expensive." Maybe this ain't the time or place to argue the point, but just for the record, let me say that co-op dog food is the cheapest you can buy. I don't know what they make it out of. Hose, straw, sawdust, anything the pigs won't eat. And then they throw in a little grease to give it a soap flavor. Tastes like soap. About half the time it gives me an upset stomach. The point is, I wasn't exactly eating the ranch in the bankruptcy. Thought I ought to throw that in to get a more balanced view of things. Lover went on. "We can't afford to keep you dogs around here if you're going to let this sort of thing go on. Everybody has to earn his keep on this ranch. I don't want this to happen again." Well, what did he suppose I wanted? Sometimes I just don't. He picked up the dead chicken by the feet and carried it down to the trash barrel. I got to admit that I watched this with some interest since it had occurred to me that there wasn't much any of us could do for the dead chicken. The more I thought about chicken dinner, the more my mouth watered. Couldn't get it out of my mind. I like chicken about as well as anything you can name. Has a nice clean taste, except for the feathers. Feathers are pretty tasteless if you ask me, and they kind of scrape when they go down. Sure was hungry for chicken, but I decided against it. Wouldn't look too good if I got caught eating a murder victim after all the trouble I'd gotten into that day. I tried to concentrate on the scene of the crime. I studied it again, went over the ground and sniffed it out. Nothing. No clues, no tracks, no scent. Could have been a coyote, a skunk, a badger, even a fox. But there was one thing I was sure of. It wouldn't happen again. Not while I was in charge of security. Not as long as I could still stand up and fight for the ranch. I saw Drover peek his head out of the machine shed. "Get some sleep, son. Tonight we throw up a double guard. We can get ourselves into some combat." We slept till dark. When the morning came up, we went out on patrol, made several laps around headquarters. Everything was quiet. Off in the distance, we heard a few coyotes, but they weren't anywhere close. Must have been after midnight when Drover said his feet hurt. Wanted to rest a while. I left him in front of the chicken house and told him to sound the alarm if he saw anything unusual. I went on down and checked things out in the corral, made the circle around the place, and ended up back at the chicken house about half an hour later. Thought I'd drop in unannounced and check on Drover, make sure he was taking care of business. As I sneaked up, I could see him in the moonlight. His ears were perked. He'd take about 2 steps and pounce on something with his front paws. Then he'd take 2 more steps, pounce again. Wasn't paying a lick of attention to the chicken house. A guy could have driven a truck in there Loaded up all the hits, been gone before Drover ever got the news. I walked up behind him. What are you doing? He screeched and headed for the machine shed. I called him back. He came out, looking all around with big eyes. Is that you, Hank? Uh-huh. What were you doing? Me? Oh, nothing. It was then that I saw the toad frog jump. Playing with a toad frog? On guard duty? When we got a murderer running around loose? He hung his head and went to wagging that stubbed tail of his. I got bored, Hank. Sit down, son. Me and you need to have a serious talk. He sat down, and I marched back and forth in front of him. Drover, I'm really disappointed in you. When you came to this ranch, you said you wanted to be a cow dog. I had misgivings at the time. I mean, you didn't look like a cow dog. But I took you on anyway and tried to teach you the business. Can you imagine how it breaks my heart to come up here and find you playing with a dadgum toad frog? His head sank lower and lower, and he started to sniffle. If you had gone into any other line of work, playing with a frog would be all right. But a cow dog is something special. You might say that we're the elite. We have to be strong, brave, and tougher than any breed of dog in the world. It's a special calling, Drover. It ain't for the common run of mutts. He started crying. Drover, there's only one thing that keeps you from being a good cow dog. What is it, Hank? You're worthless. Oh, no! Don't say it. It hurts too much. But it's true. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to teach you. I've tried to be a good example. I know. But it hasn't worked. You're just as worthless today as you were the first time I saw you. Oh! You're just a chicken-hearted little mutt, is what you are. And I don't think you'll ever make a cow dog. Yes, I will, Hank. I just need some time. Nope. Duty's duty. I got no choice but to let you go. Broke down and sobbed. Oh, Hank, I got no place to go. No friends. No family. No just 3 more chances. Can't, but Drover, sorry. 2 more? Nope. 1 more. He paced back and forth. This was one of the most difficult decisions in my career, and I didn't want to rush into it. All right, 1 more chance, but 1 more dumb stunt, and you're finished. I mean, forever. Now, dry your eyes, shape up, pay attention to your business, and concentrate on being unworthless. Okay, Hank. He started jumping up and down and going around in circles. You won't be sorry. No more frogs for me. I'll guard that chicken house and give my life if necessary. That's a spirit. I'm going to make the rounds again. If you see anything suspicious, give a holler. I started off around the house, left him sitting in front of the chicken house door. I was down at the feed room, checking for coons. I turned on my incredible speed and went tearing up the hill. I have several speeds, don't you see? Slow, normal, and incredible. I saved the last one back for special emergencies. When I turn on incredible speed, I appear as a streak of color moving across the ground. Anything that gets in my way is knocked aside, often destroyed. And I'm not talking about little stuff either. I mean trees, posts, big rocks, you name it. As I was streaking up the hill, I met Drover. Hey! Oh, I see him! He's up there! Oh my gosh! I had to slow down. Give me a description. Big, Hank. And I mean big! Huge, enormous, black and white, gigantic tail that whistles through the air, long pointed tongue flicks out at you, and horns growing out of his head. Good grief. What is it? It's a monster, Hank. A genuine monster. I stopped to think it over. I'd never tangled with a monster before. You think I can whip him? I don't know, Hank, but if anybody can, it's you. You're right. Okay, here's the plan. make the first contact. We'll hold you in reserve. If I holler for help, you come running. Get in there with them teeth of yours and bite some. Got that? I got it. Drover, if I don't come back from this one, you'll have to go on alone. Take care of the ranch and be brave. It was kind of a touching moment. Me and Drover standing there in the moonlight just before the big battle. I said goodbye and looked up the hill. I stopped and peered into the gloom. At first, I couldn't see anything. Then, my eyes fell on a huge, shadowy thing standing right in front of the chicken house door. Drover hadn't exaggerated. It was a horned monster, all right, and he was fixing to bust down the door and start killing chickens. I didn't have a moment to waste. It was now or never. Him or me. Glory or death. I bared my fangs and attacked. First contact was made only a matter of seconds after I launched the attack. The monster must have heard me coming, because he kicked the tar out of me and sent me rolling. I leaped up and charged him again, but this time I made it through, sank my teeth to him, and gave him a ferocious bite. He slung me around, but I hung on. He was big, all right. Big as a house. And here he stood, 14 feet tall at the shoulder, had 3 eyes, a long forky tongue, and a tail with deadly stingers on the end of it. Also horns that glowed in the dark, and tusks. Did I mention that? Big long tusks growing out of the side of his mouth, the kind that can rip a dog to shreds. Green slobber dripped out of his mouth, and his eyes were red. It was a fight to the death. Come on, Drover, attack! I set up a howl to alert the house. I would need all the help I could get. I'll give Drover credit. He came very out of the weeds, yapping at the top of his lungs, and got within 3 feet of the monster before he veered off and headed for the machine shed. The lights came on down at the house. The door slammed, and I heard Walker running towards me. I hoped he had a gun. I was getting beat up and tired. I wasn't sure I could keep up the fight much longer. The gun exploded, lit up the night. The monster ran, and I started after him, ready to give him the coup de grace, as we say, but Loper called me back. I figured he didn't want to risk losing the head of ranch security, which seemed pretty sensible to me. So I went back to him, licking all 4 legs at once because they all hurt, and so did everything else. Wagging my tail, I went up to him, ready for my reward. I didn't get a reward. To make a long story short, Drover had sent me into battle against a milk cow, and I got cursed for it. I thought very seriously about terminating Drover. I mean his life, not his job. But I couldn't find him in the machine shed. So I dragged my battered carcass down to the hustings and curled in my gunny sack bed. I could have sworn that was a monster. I slept late the next morning. To be real honest about it, I didn't wake up till sometime in the early afternoon. Guess all that monster fight kind of wore me down. What woke me up was the sound of the flatbed pickup rattling up the gas tank right in front of my bedroom. Loper got out and started filling the pickup. He looked at me, gave his head a shake, and said something under his breath. I tried to read his lips, but couldn't make out what he said. Probably wasn't the Pledge of Allegiance. Slim went around to the front of the pickup and opened up the hood. I was just getting up. Right, you put him a nice big stretch. I heard him say, "Hank, come here, boy." At last, a friendly voice. How long had it been since someone had spoken to me in a kind voice? In my job, nobody ever says a word when you do something right. Only when you make a mistake. And then you hear plenty about it. I trotted turned around in front of the pickup, blinked, actually, because I was pretty screwed up from the back, wagged my tail and said, howdy. Slim bent down and rubbed me behind the ears. Good dog. Good dog. Just melted on those words. Rolled over on my back and kicked all four legs in the air. It's amazing what a few kind words and a smile can do for a dog, even as hard-boiled as I am, which is something you have to be in my line of work. I respond to kindness. Slim rubbed me in that special place at the bottom of my ribs, the one that somehow hooked up to my back leg. I've never understood the mechanics of it, but if a guy scratches me there, it makes my back leg start kicking. Slim scratched and I kicked. Felt good, big old Slim laughed. Then he told me to sit. I sat and tried to shake hands. Shaking hands is one of the many tricks I've learned over the years, and I can usually count on it to delight an audience of people. But Slim didn't notice. He reached under the hood, pulled out the dipstick, and wiped it off of my ear. Good dog. I went around for some more scratching or handshake, but he seemed to forget that I was there. He slammed the hood and stepped on my paw. Oops, sorry, man, get out of the way. Sweet moments in this life are fleeting. You have to enjoy them to the fullest when they come before something new steps on you and tells you to get out of the way. Slim and Whooper got in the pickup, and Whooper said, "Don't you dogs try to follow us." Got in the motor and pulled away from the gas tank. Rover suddenly appeared out of nowhere and hopped up into the back of the pickup. Come on, Hank, we're supposed to go. Back in my mind, I knew that wasn't right, but I didn't have time to think about it. I chased the pickup until it slowed down for the big hill in front of the house and jumped up in the back. Where are we going? Rover did that famous empty-headed look of his, the one where you gaze into his eyes and see all the way to the end of his tail, and there's nothing in between. Beats me, but I bet we're going somewhere. Lover drove up to the mailbox and turned left. If he turned right, it would have meant that we were going to the pasture. A left turn meant only one thing. We were going to town. And that meant only one thing. Lover was going to be mad as thunder when he found out we jumped up back against a ride. But what the heck? You can't be safe and cautious all the time. If you're too timid in this life, you'll miss out on all the fun and adventure. You'll just stay home and snap at the flies. When you dog, you'll look back on your life and think, all these years I've been on this earth, and all I ever done was snap at the flies. When I came up, didn't see her ride down. Drove curled up behind the cab and watched the scenery go by. I seldom closed my eyes and just let the wind fill your town. Felt good. There for a little while, I forgot my cares and responsibilities. That lasted until we got to Abilene. Up rolling the blacktop started picking up speed. The wind began to sting, and my ears flapped no harder than I like a black. The crumbs of alfalfa in the pickup bed started swirling. I went down beside the road. Say, before I forget, I want to thank you for all the help you gave me last night with that monster. He gave me a shy grin. Oh, that's okay. It was the least I could do. It sure as heck was. If you'd done any later, you'd been fighting for the other side. The shy grin disappeared. You mad about something? Forget it. I didn't want to talk. Alfalfa leaves were getting into my mouth. I slept all the way to town. Next thing I knew, we had slowed down and were coasting down Main Street. I sat up and took in the sights. A bunch of stores with street lights, several stop signs, a couple of town dogs loafing around, and a big tumbleweed rolling down the middle of the street. Lumber drove into a parking place in front of the Waterhole Cafe, beside 2 or 3 other pickups that looked like cowboy rigs. When he got out and saw us back there, he gave us the tongue lashing I had expected. It was no worse than usual, not bad enough to make me regret that we hitched a ride to town. He told us to sit, be good, and don't bark. Me and Slim went into the Waterhole. For 5 or 10 minutes, we concentrated on being good. It was a real drag. Then I heard Drover say, "Psst." He jerked his head towards a pickup that was parked next to us. In the back end, fast asleep, was a big, ugly boxer dog. We both moved to the side of the pickup head and stared at him. He must have felt our eyes, because after a bit his head came up and he glowered at us with a wicked expression on his face. "What are you doing?" "Just looking at the sights. What's your name?" "Couldn't tell. Ask me again and I'll tell you the same." I guess Drover didn't understand what that meant, because he said, "What's your name?" "John Brown. Ask me again and I'll knock you down." Drover gave me a puzzled look and I said, "I got you chained up." He was tied to the head rack up with a piece of chain. "So I won't kill any dogs." "You kill dogs? No fooling." "Just for drill. I prefer the bigger stuff." That sort of ended the conversation. Quintain went back to sleep, and I got involved with a couple of noisy flies that were bothering my ears. Took a few snaps at them, but didn't get anything. Next thing I knew, Drover said, "What would you do if we peed on your tires?" Boxer's head came up real slow, and he turned them wicked eyes on little Drover. "What did you say?" I said, "What would you do if you peed on your tires?" Drover, it made me a little uneasy, the way he was talking about me. The boxer sat up. "I'd tear off your legs and break your neck." "But how would you do that when you're chained up?" "Drover!" The boxer lifted one side of his mouth and unveiled a set of long white teeth. "I bust the chain." "It looks pretty stout to me." "Drover!" "It ain't stout enough. Just curious." Digging up, we went back to sleep, and I got back to them flies. One of them was big and green, and also a little slow and drawing. Waited for my shot and slipped. Got the little booger. Then I had to spit him out real quick. Boy, did he taste foul. Seemed to me I heard water coming somewhere. I glanced around and saw big enough his head come up. He heard it too. Drover had just wiped out the left rear tire and was going towards the front one. It seemed to me this was poor judgment on Drover's part. The boxer sprang to his feet. "Get away from that tire, runt. No two-bit cow dog's gonna mess up my tires." I didn't like his tone of voice. I got up and wandered to the side of the pickup. "Say there, partner, maybe I didn't hear you right. You weren't suggesting that there's any two-bit cow dogs around here, were you?" "I ain't suggesting nothing. I'm saying you're a couple of two-bit cow dogs." "You mean that as an insult or a compliment?" "Sorry, bit." "Oh, dear, Drover, the dust seems kind of bad all of a sudden. Why don't you wet down that other tire?" He grinned, hiked up his leg, and let her rip. The boxer went nuts when he saw that. All at once his fangs were flashing in the sunlight. He lunged against the chain and started a big, deep roar of bark, so loud I could feel it bouncing off your face. I waited for him to shut up. "You want to take back what you said about cow dogs?" He lunged against the chain and slashed the air about 6 inches from the end of my nose. chestnut. I hopped down, skipped around the right side of Martha's pickup, and wiped out the front and back tires. Drover and I met at the front, swapped sides, and gave each tire a second coat. Big and Ugly went for serve. He thought it was a chain and roared, "Don't you know, just let me in." Drover and I finished the job and hopped back into the pickup. When the cafe door burst open, we were fast asleep. Lover and the boxer's master stormed out. "What's going on out here, you dogs?" "It's my dog, Over. He's making all the racket." "Bruno, shut up. You're disturbing the whole town." I said I've been talking my arms. Bruno was getting a good scolding from his master. He whined and wagged his stump tail and tried to explain what had happened. But his master didn't understand. This seems to be a common trait in masters. "Now you lie down and be quiet. I don't want to hear another peep out of you. You know better than that." Then went back inside. I waited a minute and then gave Drover the coast as clear sign. We got up and went over to the edge of the pickup. Bruno was lying flat, his eyes wide open, and a couple of fangs showing beneath his lips. He was trembling with rage. "Drover, you ever seen an uglier dog than that one?" "No, never did." "Me neither. Can you imagine what his mother must have looked like?" A growl came deep in Bruno's throat. "I don't like his pointed ears." "You know why they're pointed, don't you? When boxers are born, they have such big floppy ears that a surgeon has to cut off 2 yards of hide. And then they whack off the tail, and then they put the pup's face into a shop vice and mash it till it looks just like Bruno's." "Don't kid me." "Yep. And as you might expect, it affects the brain too. Mashes it down to the size of a dog biscuit." The growl in Bruno's throat was growing louder. "That's why boxers..."
In half a mile, keep left to stay on I-20 West.
"It's a mark of the breed. They tell me you can't get papers on a boxer unless he's too dumb to walk across the street. They give him a test, see, and all the ones that flunk become registered boxers." By this time, the growl had become...
Keep left to stay on I-20 West.
And that's why you never see boxers working cattle. Just too frazzly dumb to hold in a steady job. Bruno's eyes were cloudy, as if they were filled with smoke from a fire burning inside. His teeth were snapping together. Maybe he was right imaginary bones. "I would have want a dog that was so big and dumb and ugly." I've wondered about that myself, and the only answer I could come up with is that maybe if a guy had a piece of log chain that he didn't know what to do with, he'd buy a boxer to hang it on. That did it. Bruno erupted again and lunged at us, his mouth wide open and full of jagged teeth. I got a real good look at his tonsils, which appeared to be a little inflamed. I jerked my head at Drover, and we were both sending up a line of Z's when the cowboys came out again. "Bruno, what in the world? Bad dog. Why can't you just lie still and shut up like these other dogs?" Bruno whimpered. "Well, I guess I'd better go. Bruno's on a snort. See y'all later." When the pickup drove off, me and Drover sat up and grinned and waved goodbye to our new friend. He was so mad, his eyes were crossed and foam dripped off his chops. That's what makes being a cowdog worthwhile. Teamwork. When we crossed the cattle guard and put us back on the ranch, I felt a change come over me. In town, I'd been just another happy-go-lucky dog without a care in the world. But back on the ranch, I felt that same crushing sense of responsibility that's known to people in high places, such as presidents, prime ministers, emperors, and such. Being head of ranch security is a great honor, but also a dreadful work. I remembered the chicken house murder, I still didn't have any suspects. Or I had too many suspects. Maybe that was it. Everyone was a suspect. Well, everyone milk cow. I had pretty much scratched her off the list. And the porcupine, since they only eat trees. But every other creature on the ranch was under the shadow of suspicion. Except Drover. He was too chicken to kill a chicken. We got home. I trotted up to the chicken house and went over the whole thing in my mind. While I was sitting there, lost in thought, a chicken came up and pecked me on the tail. Scared the fool out of me just for a second. I snarled at her and made her squawk and flap her wings. That's another thing about this job.
There's a speed trap ahead.
Put your life on line. And for what? A bunch of idiot birds that just peck you on the tail as to tell you good morning. Sometimes you wonder if it's worth it. And all that keeps you going is dedication to duty. In the end, that's what separates the top echelon of cow dogs from the common rabble, whatever the word is. Anyway, the dogs that don't give a rip is what I'm saying. Well, I had nothing to work with. No evidence, no case. There wasn't a thing I could do until the killer struck again. I could only hope that me and Robert could catch him in the act. I decided to change my strategy. Instead of throwing a guard around the chicken house, we would use the stakeout approach. Stakeout is a technical term which we use in this business. Webster defines stake as a length of wood or metal pointed at one end for driving into the ground. It comes from the Anglo-Saxon word staka, akin to the Danish stak. Out is defined as away from, forth from, or removed from a place, position, or situation. It comes from the Middle English ut. That's about as technical as I can make it. In layman's terms, a stakeout is basically a trap. You leave the chicken house unguarded, don't you see? And watch and wait, and wait, and watch until the villain makes his move. And then you swoop in and get him. Pretty simple, really, when you get used to the terminology. At dark, me and Drover staked the place out. We hid in some tall weeds, maybe 30 feet from the chicken house. Time sure did drag. The first couple hours, we heard coyotes howling off in the distance. Drover kept looking around with big eyes. I thought he might try to slip off to the machine shed, but he didn't. After a while, he laid his head down on his paws and went to sleep. I could have kept him awake. Told Frank demanded that he stay awake. But I thought, what the heck, the little guy probably needed sleep. I figured I could keep watch and wake him up when the time came for action. Then I fell asleep. But the funny thing about it was that I dreamed I was awake, sitting there and standing guard. I kept saying, "Hank, are you awake?" And Hank said, "Sure I am. If I was asleep, you and I wouldn't be talking like this, would we?" And I said, "No, I suppose not." Seems to me it's kind of a waste of good sleep to dream about what you were doing when you were awake. But that's what happened. I heard something so long, and I said, "Hank, what's that?" "Nothing." "You sure?" "Sure, I'm sure. You're wide awake and watching the stakeout, aren't you?" "I think so, yes." "Then stop worrying." His walking went on, and the next thing I knew, Drover was jumping up and down. "Hank! Oh, Hank! He's back! Murder! Help! Blood! We fell asleep! Oh, guys! Hank, wake up!" "Huh? Are you asleep?" Right then my eyes popped open, and I woke up. Dang the luck, I was asleep. I was afraid of that. We dashed out of the weeds and found a body south of the chicken house door. The MO was the same. There's another technical term, MO. It stands for modus of operationis, which means how it was done. We shortened it to MO. A pattern began to emerge. The killer had struck twice, and both times he had killed a white leghorn hen. Actually, that might not have been a crucial point because there weren't any other colored hens on the place, but I mention it to demonstrate the kind of deep thinking that goes into solving a case of this type. You can't overlook a single detail, even those that don't mean anything. But the most revealing clue was that the murderer hadn't dragged his victim off. That meant that he hadn't killed for food, but only for the sport of it. In other words, we had a pathological killer on the loose. This was very significant, the first big break in the case. At last, I had an M.O. that narrowed the suspects down to coyotes, coons, skunks, badgers, foxes, rats. It hadn't eliminated anybody, and I was right back where I started. I hunkered down and studied the body. It was still warm. Warm chicken. My mouth began to water, and I noticed a rumble in my stomach. This fresh evidence was pointing the case in an entirely new direction. Drover, why don't you run on and get some sleep? You've had a tough day. Oh, I'm awake now. You look sleepy. I do? Yes, you do. Awful sleepy. Your eyes seem kind of baggy. Don't you think we should sound the alarm? Not just yet. I need to do a little more study on the corpse. My stomach growled real loud. Drover perked his ears. What was that? I didn't hear anything. He waited and listened. I concentrated on making my stomach shut up. You can do that, you know, control your body with your mind. Only it didn't work this time. My stomach growled again, sounded like a rusty gate hinge. What is that? Rigor mortis. Chickens do that. Run along now and get some sleep. We've got a big day ahead of us. Well, okay. He started off and hurt my stomach again. He turned around and twisted his head and stared at me. Was that you? Don't think, sir. Good night, Drover. He shrugged and went on down to the gas tanks. I gave him plenty of time to bed down, get comfortable, snap at a few mosquitoes, and fall asleep. My mouth was watering so much that it was dripping off my chin. Everything was real quiet. I snatched up the body, loped out into the horse pasture, and began my post-mortem investigation. It was very interesting. I didn't hurry this part of the investigation. I labored over my work for several hours and fell into a peaceful sleep. When I awoke, it was bright daylight. I could feel the rays of the sun warming my coat. I glanced around, trying to remember where I was, and when I figured it out, my heart almost stopped beating. I was lying in the center of a circle of white feathers, and several more feathers were clinging to my mouth and nose. My belly bulged, and Sally Mae was standing over me, a look of horror on her face. Hank, you're the one! Oh, Hank, how could you? Huh? No, wait, there had been a mistake. You see, the chicken was already dead, and I thought, hey, listen, I could explain everything. It must have looked pretty bad, me lying there in the midst of all that damaging evidence. Sally Mae headed down to the house, swinging her arms and walking fast. I didn't know what to do. If I ran, it would look bad. If I stayed, it would look bad. No matter what I did, it would look bad. Maybe eating the darn chicken had been a mistake. I was still sitting there, mulling over my next course of action, when Sally Mae returned with her husband. There, look! You see who's been killing the chickens? Your dog! I whapped my tail against the ground and put on my most innocent face. Lover and I had been through a lot together. Surely he would know that his head of ranch security wasn't a common chicken-killing dog. He had to trust me. I could see his face harden, and I knew I was cooked. Hank, you bad dog. I never would have thought you'd do something like this. I didn't. It was a mistake. I'd been framed. Come here, Hank. I crawled over to him. He picked up the chicken head, which was lying on the ground. I hadn't eaten it because I found that beaks are hard to swallow. He tied a piece of string around the head and tied it around my neck. There, you wear that and it falls off. Maybe that'll help you remember that killing hens doesn't pay around here. They left, talking in low voices and shaking their heads. I tried to bite the string and get that thing off my neck, but I couldn't do it. I was feeling mighty low, mighty blue. I was ashamed of myself, but also outraged at the injustice of it. I headed down to the corral to find Drover. Instead, I ran into Pete the barn cat, just the guy I didn't want to see. He was sunning himself in front of the saddle shed. In other words, loafing, which is what he does about 95% of the time. The mice were rampant down at the feed barn, but Pete couldn't work a mouse patrol and do his busy schedule. It interfered with his loafing. That's a cat for you. He saw me before I saw him. He yawned, and a big grin spread across his mouth. Nice necklace you've got on, Yankee. Where could a fellow buy one of those? You have to be in the mood for Pete, and I wasn't. I made a dive for him, and he escaped instant death by a matter of inches. He hissed again, and I fell in right behind him. I chased him around the corrals. He hissed and I barked. There were several horses in the west lot, and they all started bucking and kicking up their heels. It was my lousy luck that Slim happened to be riding one, 2-year-old colt, as I recall, and he started yelling, "Hey, get out of here! Whoa, Sinbad, easy, bro!" Nobody around here ever yells at the cat. Why? I don't know. I just don't understand. I gave up the chase. I would settle accounts with Pete some other day. I loped over to the gas tanks, looking for Grover. He heard me coming, sat up, saw the chicken head around my neck, turned tail, and sprinted for the machine shed as fast as he could go. "Grover, wait, it's me, hey!" He kept going. Yes, he didn't want to get involved with their killing. I went down to the gas tank and laid down. Boy, I felt low. I tried to sleep, but didn't have much luck. That chicken head was starting to smell, and it reminded me all over again of the injustice of my situation. Off in the distance, I could hear Pete. He was still up in the tree he had climbed to escape my attack. He was singing a song called "Mamas, Don't Let Your Puppies Grow Up to Be Cowdogs." Now and then he would stop singing, and I would hear him laughing. It really got in my skin. I lay there brooding for a long time. Then I pushed myself up, and all of a sudden it was clear what I would have to do. They had left me no choice. I took one last look at my bedroom there under the gas tank and started up the hill. As I passed by the machine shed door, Drover stuck his head out. "Psst, where are you going?" Trotted past. "I'm leaving." He crept out, glanced around to see if anybody was watching, and came after me. "Leaving?" "That's right. I quit. I resign." "You can't do that." "You just watch me. This chicken head was the last straw. I'm fed up with this place. I'm moving on." "Moving? Where are you going?" "I don't know yet. West, toward the setting sun." It was quiet for a minute then. "I'll go with you." "No, you won't." "How come?" "Because, Drover, I'm starting a new life. I'm going to become an outlaw." "An outlaw?" "That's right. They've driven me to it. I tried to run this ranch, but it just didn't work. I'm going back to the wild. One of these days, they'll be sorry." "Okay." "Goodbye, Drover. Take care of things. I'm sorry it has to end this way. Next time we meet, I won't be Hank the Cowdog. I'll be Hank the Outlaw. So long." And with that, I trotted off to a new life as a criminal, outcast, nomad, and wild dog. I made into the canyon country. If a dog was going to go back to the wild, that was the place to go. Funny how good it felt walking away from everything. The job, the responsibility, the constant worry. When I crossed the road there at the mailbox, I felt free for the first time in years. The other side of the road, I stopped and looked back. Drover had followed me about 100 yards and stopped. He was watching me. Maybe he thought I would change my mind and go back. Maybe he was waiting for me to tell him to come on. I didn't. I ran my eyes over the ranch I had loved and protected for so many years, waved farewell to Drover, and went on my way, singing this little song. When I take a notion to swim me an ocean, or climb me a mountain, or kill me a bear, I'm never distracted or frightened or acted upon by your everyday worries or cares. But how do I do it? I don't know, I just don't have any idea. I just do it. Because of my job as the head of security, I must fight monsters and coyotes and coons. I rarely get from seldom bloody my lip on the fists of subversive and criminal goons. But how do I do it? I don't know, I just don't have any idea. I just do it. And speaking of women, did I think to mention that I have a lady not too far from here? Miss Beulah the collie, she loves me by golly, and often has spasms when I get too near. But how do I do it? I don't know, I just don't have any idea. I just do it. I reckon if God was inventing a bomb that was certain to drive all the women insane, he'd probably demand that I sit down and hand him a list of the things that have brought me my fame. But how do I do it? I don't know, I just don't have any idea. I can't explain it, can't be specific, but it could be that I'm just terrific. Not bad, huh? Well, I wondered how Lola, Slim, and Sally Mae would react when they figured out that I had resigned and moved on. I had an idea they'd be sorry. They'd realize how they'd done me wrong and misjudged me and accused me of terrible things I didn't do. I mean, all I did was eat a dead chicken, and she wasn't a bit deader when I finished than when I started. Maybe they'd cry. Why not? A lot of people cry over their dogs. They tell me that when Lassie and Rin Tin Tin were big on TV, people used to cry when they thought Lassie was in a jam he couldn't get out of. When Rennie had got himself chewed up by a bear, and it appeared that he wouldn't pull out of it. People never realize just how important a dog is until it's too late. In life, we get yelled at, cursed, and kicked around. But when we're gone, people wish they had us back. Yeah, they'd cry when they found out that old Hank had moved on. And they'd cry even harder when it dawned on them that their ranch was being protected. And I mean so-called protected. By Pete the Barn Cat and Drover the Chicken Hearted. That would bring tears out of a Bodart post. Yep, they'd cry, and they'd say, "Oh, I wish we had Hanky back. He had his faults, but he was a good, honest dog. It won't be the same around here without him." Well, around sundown, they'd walk out into the pasture and call, "Here, Hank! Come on, Hanky, here, boy!" You know what? I'd be up in them canyons, eating fresh meat instead of co-op dog food, listening to the sounds of nature, and enjoying peace and freedom. I'd hear them calling my name, begging me to come back, but I wouldn't go. They'd had their chance. I tried to go straight and live within the law, but they'd driven me to drastic measures, driven me to follow the owl hoot trail and become an outlaw. Next morning, I'd get in the pickup and go driving around, checking all the spots where I used to hang out. The sewer, the gas tanks, the corral, the creek. But I wouldn't be there. Then, they drive over to the neighbor's place. "Anybody seen Hank? We've lost our cow dog." "No? Well, we're offering a $500 reward to anyone who finds him." Then they'd start driving through the pastures, honking the horn and calling, "Hank, here, boy, come home. Hank, we miss you. We're sorry for everything we've done. We'll do anything if you'll just come home." In all them canyons, I'd hear him calling. Peeking through the rocks, I'd see him driving slow across the pasture. But I wouldn't go back. Injustice had changed me, turned me bitter, snapped something inside me. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about when I turned my back on the ranch forever and hit the owl trail. They say you're not supposed to feel good about other people's misfortunes, but I have to admit that it gave me considerable wicked pleasure to know that I had left them weeping. And that with me gone, the ranch was going to fall apart real quick. That's the kind of satisfaction that dog food and a flea collar just won't buy. Must have been late afternoon when I reached the wild country, up near the head of one of them canyons. It was pretty hot down there, not much breeze. The canyon walls rose up 100 feet in the air, and a couple of buzzards floated in the sky overhead. I was pretty tired, and my feet was kind of sore from walking over the rocks. So when I found a little spring of water, I jumped in and rolled around. It was pleasant, but not nearly as satisfying as a roll in the sewer. There was one thing about my old life that I would miss. I always looked forward to the middle of the day when me and Grover used to go down to the place where the septic tank overflowed, hop in and splash and roll around with our paws in the air, and then get out and have a good old-fashioned potato shake. You can say what you want about spring water, but if you ask me, it ain't near as refreshing or helpful as good old septic tank water. I always liked the deep, rich, manly smell of it. A dog ought to smell like a dog, seems to me. And I never had no desire to be one of those town dogs that get their hair clipped and their toenails painted, that get sprayed all over with that stinking perfume stuff. Perfume gives me a headache that stops up my nose. Anyway, that spring pool wasn't as refreshing as the sewer would have been, but I managed to cool myself down and satisfy my thirst. I wallered around in it for 10 or 15 minutes. When I was ready to get out, I noticed that I had some company. Those buzzards that had been floating around the rim of the canyon had dropped in for a visit. 2 of them. They were perched on the ground near the edge of the pool, stared at me. I shot them some fangs right away. I mean, I try to be friendly and all that, but there's just something about a buzzard that don't sit right with me. Maybe it's because they're so ugly. Looks ain't everything in this life, unless you happen to look like a turkey buzzard, and then they're pretty crucial. It's hard to be friendly to something that ugly. I gave them a growl, bent their necks forward and stared at me. Then Wallace, the older of the two, said, "We thought maybe you was dead." Thinking gets birds like you into trouble. Run along, I got things to do. They didn't move, so I stepped out on dry land and shook myself. Water all over Wallace. He dropped his wings and took a couple of steps backwards. "He ain't dead, Junior. You made a mistake."
"I didn't tell you he's dead, Paul. I didn't just know he is."
Junior Junior seemed to have a little stutter problem.
When I pick up a signal as the something's dead, remember the ground squirrel? I picked him up at 500 yards, and what did you say?
Wallace frowned and squinted one eye.
I don't recall. What did I say?
You said I was seeing things. You said my eyes was hooked up to my
Belly button, it's coming back now.
You said you didn't have enough experience, and when I got as old as you, maybe I'd amount to something.
I was trying to be optimistic, son. You can't blame me for that.
Wallace burped and the whole canyon went sour.
Dang, I'm hungry.
I'm telling you, Paul, he's dead. I picked up the signals.
They moved a little closer and looked me over real careful.
Junior, if he's dead, how come he crawled out of that water hole? And how come his eyes are open and he's looking back at us?
He's dead.
Maybe so, son. I never claimed to know everything.
Yesterday morning.
All right, I take it back. Hey,
His head shot up in the air.
I'm starting to pick up the signals now. He is dead, you're right.
He came towards me. I watched him and lifted my lip on the right side.
Whoa, Junior, hold it, son. Did you see that lip go up? Did you see them teeth? Looky there, son. See what I'm saying?
Junior stretched out his skinny neck and studied me for a minute.
That don't make me feel nothing. I'll prove it.
With that, Junior marched up and pecked me on the head. As you might imagine, I didn't care for that. I took a snap at Junior and relieved him of a double handful of feathers. The buzzards went running for cover. The old man tripped over a rock, went down, hopped up, and kept going, looking back over his way the whole time.
I told you he wasn't dead. I told you once. I told you twice. I told you 3 times. You're gonna keep fooling around and get us hurt one of these days.
What's that around his neck?
Eh?
Back to looking at me again.
That's where the signals coming from. That thing around his under his chin.
Oh, Wallace's eyes popped open, and a smile came over his beak.
I believe you're right, son. It's a chicken head.
Wallace pulled a pleasant face for a buzzard and came waddling over to me.
Hi there. You new around here?
Maybe.
I'm Wallace. This here's Junior, and we was just... What would you take for that chicken head?
What you got? Went into a huddle. Then the old man said,
Tell you what, neighbor, times is hard right now. My eyes is going bad on me, and Junior's a little on the simple-minded side of things, and we haven't had a good meal in 3 days. We sure are hungry, and we sure could use a chicken head right now till our luck changes. We'd have to take it on credit is the long and short.
Wallace nodded his head.
Yes, we would. We surely would, because we never forget a good deed.
I thought that over. Seemed to me that trading a stinking chicken head for a buzzard's goodwill was about an even swap. Couldn't take either one of them to the bank. Tell you what, boys, if you can chew the string in half, I'll let you have the head. Their eyes lit up, and Junior started towards me. Only the old man slapped him across the mouth with his wing.
I'll handle this. You just stand by for further orders.
Wallace walked over and squinted at the string, leaned out his neck, and took a bite. Got my ear instead of the string. I yelped, and jumped away.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's my eyes. Let me try again. All right, try again, but leave the ear where it sits. He tried again, and this time he found the string and chewed it in half. Just as his head hit the ground, Junior made a dive for it, swooped up in his beak, and ran off. The old man went after him, flapping his wings and stumbling over rocks and things. Junior, you come back here! Junior! They fought for 5 minutes. First Junior had it, then Wallace had it. Then they got so busy fighting that it fell to the ground. Chicken swooped down and picked it up, and that was the last they saw of their supper. Stop the fight. See what you've done?
You could have done it because you're so greedy.
It's about dark by this time, so I found me a comfortable spot and curled up for the night. Junior and Wallace argued back and forth for another hour, until at last they shut up, and we had some peace and quiet. I was drifting off to sleep when I heard Junior's voice. What? You ought to be after the way you acted. What?
You ever eat a dog?
I raised my head. The first son of a buck that comes creeping around me in the night's gonna get his legs tore off, one by one. Didn't hear another sound out of them birds for the rest of the night, and they didn't stay for breakfast. Actually, there wasn't any breakfast. And then there wasn't any lunch. Long towards the middle of the afternoon, it occurred to me that if I wanted to eat, I would have to get out and hustle some grub. I left camp and lit out north, figured I would scout the head of the canyon. I hadn't gone very far when I stopped dead in my tracks. I heard something. I slipped behind a bush and studied the country ahead. Kept hearing that sound, but I couldn't see what was causing it. Then my sharp cowdog eyes picked up something. At first glance, it appeared to be a medium-sized, bushy-tailed dog stumbling around without a head. Well, that didn't make any sense. I'm not so easily fooled. My years of security work told me that there was more to this thing, so I decided to investigate. A dog without a head? I didn't believe it. I moved closer and pieced together the following details. 1. The subject wasn't a dog. He was a coyote. Age approximately 3 years and 5 months. Weight 37 pounds. Length including tail 43 inches. 2. He was not a he. He was a she, meaning a female of the species. Rather homely, as coyotes tend to be, but not without charm. 3. Subject had stuck her head into a Hawaiian punch can with the top cut out. And had lodged around her ears and got me stuck there, leaving her blind and helpless. One of the first rules you learn as a cow dog is that cow dogs and coyotes don't mix. They're natural enemies. The former devoted to protection of home livestock and civilization, the latter devoted to a dissolute style of life based on raiding, degradation, and uncivilized forms of behavior. In other words, I had every reason to walk away and leave the coyote to her fate, a slow, lingering death. Business, you can't be sentimental. Still, death inside a Hawaiian punch can seem too early for a coyote. I just couldn't walk away and leave her to die, even though I had a feeling that if I helped her, I would regret it. Afternoon, ma'am. My name's Hank the Cow Dog. Appears to me that you're in distress. She heard my voice. She bristled and tried to run away. She stopped, lay flat on the ground. I recognize this as the natural sneaky reaction of the coyote breed. When you catch them red-handed, they can't run away, they'll lie flat on the ground. I
I suppose they think they're living in the surroundings. It's hard to say. Coyotes, you don't need to be afraid, man. I'm here to help you. Lie still, and I'll see if I can get that thing off your head. I don't know how much of this you understood. Coyotes don't speak the same language as dogs, don't you see? Some of the words are similar and some aren't. Modern Dogfish and the Coyote dialect both come from the same linguistic root, which was the ancient language spoken by our common ancestors many years ago before the species split into Dogus domesticus and Dogus coyotes. Stuff I don't want to bore anyone, but it's important that you understand these things. Well, it just so happened that I was known in the coyote dialect, so I decided to address the lady in her own language. Be not hurt, Missy Coyote. Be friend. Be oh, Missy. Missy have trouble. What's that? Be not hurt. Be help. Missy Coyote, lie still. Not move. Hang Missy real quick. One time she didn't speak. Then it was important that I got the point across to her that I was a friend, don't you see? Because it would have been typical coyote behavior for her to jump up once I got the can on her head and tear off one of my ears. They're just a little bit crazy, coyotes. You have to be careful. Anyway, she lay still while I hooked my front paws around the can and started pulling. I pulled and I tugged and I strained and I grunted, and finally the can got free. That's when I got my first look at Missy Coyote's face. I'm not one to gush or be overwhelmed. Let's get that straight right here. My years in the security business have trained me to look upon most things as mere facts. Facts to be gathered, studied, and analyzed. I mean, I've seen women before, lots of them, scads of them. I've been through times in my life when women were hanging all over me, and I literally couldn't take a step without bumping into an adoring female. You're a cow dog, you get used to this. It's common knowledge that cow dogs are just a little bit special. Read your dog books. Ask anyone who knows about dogs. Check it out with the experts. They'll tell you that women flip over cow dogs. What I'm saying, and I'm just trying to put it all in perspective, don't say it, said I wasn't one of these dogs that chased women all the time, or even had much interest in them. Let me see Missy Coyote's face. With those big eyes and complicated nose, I got weak in the legs and kind of sweaty in the head. She was the by George prettiest thing I'd ever laid eyes on. Missy Coyote, pretty. She was still blinking her eyes against the light of the sun. Yes, she'd been in that game created to. She got used to the sunlight. She looked me over real close. Then she stopped. I actually fell over and started kicking my legs in the air. It was an unconscious, unwanted response, not the kind of reaction you'd expect from a professional cow dog. But, as I pointed out before, I was only flesh and blood. Missy didn't understand what it smashed him, I reckon. She came over. Never get caught to the side like this. She had her head cocked to the side. You sick? Yeah, I'm sick, all right. I need to get out of here. I struggled to my feet and tried to leave, but my back legs didn't function. I was sure she could hear my heartbeat. I could. It was about to take the top of my head off, to be exact. Hey, hey! I struck. Not hey. Yes, pretty name. Me like, whatever you say. He called girl who drink blood. Girl who drink blood? You like? There wasn't a whole lot of poetry in that thing.
call you Missy Coyote. Like Missy Coyote more so. Bloody name not pretty.
Bloody name pretty to coyote. Coyote lifeblood. Make grow strong. Keep every winter. Hung feel like blood in winter.
Hung you. Go out dog food in winter. No need blood.
What means? Grow out dog food.
No can explain. Too complicated.
Why I'm here. Not at people place. Many building and house with chicken.
Hank get mad at people. Good job. People don't understand. Hank no more guard chicken. Hank follow outlaw trail.
Outlaw trail. Dangerous. Live out in Parler. Coyotes around. Coyotes left that hungry.
I decided it was time to turn on some children. Just a little bit of time. Didn't want to give the girl a look off once. Missy Coyote like Hank. She smiled. Mercy. Hank completely relaxing. Oh, yeah, really? Big, cute?
Other coyote not think so. Missy, a brother named Scrunch. Not like French though. Hurt is fine.
Your Scrunch's sister? I know all about Scrunch, the most notorious outlaw coyote in the whole country. He was big, mean, and utterly heartless. He probably killed more chickens and barn cats than any three coyotes on the ranch. His common laws said he'd kill a stray dog just for the sport of it. As a fact, me and Scrunch had been in a battle and fought to a draw, which I considered a victory. That was back in the winter. January. Oh, yes, it was, because we fought in the snow. Scrunch was a real thug. How can a nice girl like you have such a bad brother? She shook her head.
Maybe they might rest. Can't say so.
I ain't scared. I ain't ready to fight whole family for Missy. I noticed that she was trembling. Thought maybe it was a result of my charm. Then she whispered, "Oh, she wasn't kidding. The whole dang family had arrived. We were surrounded by lean-limbed, long-haired, scruffy-tailed, yellow-eyed, slack-jawed, hungry-looking coyotes. I was in trouble, brothers. Had a feeling that a wreck was coming. Mrs. Old Man was the chief. His full proper name was Many Rabbit Gut Needed Full Money, which in coyote culture was regarded as a beautiful name. Can you imagine a mother saddling an innocent pup with a name like that? Shows just how backward them coyotes were. Anyway, nobody used his full name except at rituals and war councils and such. Mostly they called him Chief Gut, or just plain Gut. Gut was an old devil, skinny. You could count every rib he owned on both sides. Looked like a one-way plow with a wet blanket thrown over the discs. Walked with a limp, packed his right front leg, which was missing a couple of toes. Had a long scar down the front of his face. Nose was all beat up, and his left ear looked as though the rats had been chewing on it. He came limping over where I was, and strangely enough, he had a smile on his face. Made me feel a little better about things. Aha! Daughter gets dog! Coyote girl, pretty, huh? Mighty pretty, yes she is. You like, huh? He turned to the other coyotes. Dog like girl who drink blood. Think she pretty. They roared at that. I got a good chuckle out of it. I must have missed the joke. Old Gut turned back to me. Oh, foolish dog to chase coyote
conversation from the Coyote dialect, but maybe I ought to pause here to clear up some of the terminology. Big was the Coyote word for cowboy, and boom boom meant gun. Probably better get that straight. I mean, you can't expect everyone to be fluent in 3 or 4 or 5 languages. I was, but that's just part of my job. One of the many things a top-notch cowdog had to master before he could take over a ranch and run it the way it ought to be run. I might also mention that I had a fair knowledge of the coon, possum, and badger dialects, and I could bluff my way through in chicken and prairie dog. Actually, chicken is pretty simple. Chickens are so dumb that they only have about half a dozen words in the whole language, and 3 of those words are just different ways of saying hello. Alright, we got that out of the way. Now, where was I? Oh, got turned to me. Oh, foolish dog to chase coyote girl into canyon, Barry! Already heard that. Now you in big trouble, huh? You do good job, daughter. Catch dog. It's dog. Dog help. Save life. Big lump. One friend. And scout. Oh, not friend. Fight coyote many time away from chicken. Eat chicken dog. Chicken dog. Them was fight words. If Missy hadn't been there to hold me back, I might have cleaned house on the whole coyote nation. Me and old man got nose to nose and were growling at each other when I caught some motion out of the corner of my eye. I looked. It was Scrunch. His crowd smoke, walking real slow. Hair along his backbone was bristled all the way from the back of his neck to the tip of his tail. Had a snarl on his mouth that showed 2 rows of long white fangs. He was a big, tall, rough, raw bone, and so ugly that a guy could hardly stand to look him in the face. I felt a chill. One got backed off. Now what you say, chicken dog? You scared, betcha, huh? I swallowed it, trying to keep my knees from going out. No, I ain't scared. You're not scared, Scrunch. You're not smart. Scrunch, very bad fellow. Clenched and missing. Tell your brother that I don't like the look on his face. She told me. He stopped. Well, they quit yipping and howling out loud. Tell your brother that if he takes one more step, I'm going to use him to sweep this whole pasture. When I get done, there won't be a cactus bush left in Ogletree County. He grinned and took another step. Tell your brother that I saw that, and I won't forget it. Missy shook her head. Don't talk so big. Makes Scrunch mad. Big mouth make big trouble. One of the first rules for learning some dirty work is an old piece of cowdog wisdom. Never bite if you can bark. Never bark if you can growl. Never growl if you can talk. And never talk if you can run. In other words, when the odds are against you, the best kind of fight is none at all. That's my strategy says. The longer I talk, the longer I get to stay alive. And who knows, I might just say something that would change Scrunch's mind about tearing me limb from limb, though I didn't have a great deal of hope. Standing maybe 4 or 5 feet from me, a hush had fallen over the track. All eyes were on the 2 of us. We sat down and leered. And I mean leered, brother. There was no ordinary grin. I leered right back. Tried to anyway, though I never really perfected a good leer. And I turned to Missy. Tell your brother that I've changed my mind. If he can mind his manners and act right, we'll forget the whole thing. Missy started to speak, but Scrunch lifted his paw for silence. God speak through sister. You have talk, you speak Scrunch. All right. You asked for it. You've really done it this time.
I was prepared to forget the whole thing and just let it slide, but by George, if you're gonna keep pushing and mouthing off, well, hey, this could get serious. Come on. Come on, get off your duff and let's settle this thing once and for all. I'm tired of waiting. I mean, I came out here to get you, Scrunch. Oh, I knew you thought I was messing around with your sister. Ha! That's just what I wanted you to think. It was a trap, Scrunch. And you walked right into it. Oh, what a dumb brute you are. I didn't think you'd actually fall for it. I never dreamed it would be this easy. All these months I've been waiting to even the score between us, and I never dreamed that I could just walk into the canyon and you come to me. Silence. Then I was silent. Guess they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Scrunch glanced at Jean Gut. Gut glanced at Missy. Missy glanced at me. And I gave her a smile. Scrunch stood up. So did the hair on the back of his neck. Scrunch killed chicken dog. Think so? You actually think that? Ha! Holy cats, where have you been all your life? You've been up in the Bojacks too long, Scrunch. You're so country it hurts. I mean, you're pathetic. I almost feel sorry for you. Take a step forward. You still don't understand, do you? It still hadn't sunk through your thick barbarian skull and you walked right into my trap. Oh, I can't believe this. Scrunch cut his eyes towards the gut. Scrunch killed chicken dog. Okay. Marched right up to him until there weren't more than a couple of inches between our noses. If you're bound and determined to go through with this, let's get it on. But first, I want you to do something. I want you to ask yourself this question. Why would a smart dog walk right into the middle of a bunch of coyotes in their country? Put your little brain to work on that, Scrunch. If you figure it out, you'll know the secret. I'll give you 30 seconds. Wasn't a sound, not a whisper. 15 seconds went by real slow. I was in the process of checking out the escape routes when an old woman coyote, Scrunch's mother as it turned out, broke the circle and came out to him. She whispered something in his ear. No! Rod's not scared. Kill chicken dog. Then old Chief got withdrawn to join the conference. It was kind of agitated. They growled and snapped and snarled. All right, time's up. I'm out of patience. Have you figured out the secret, or shall we start spilling blood? He let Scrunch away. He glared daggers at me over his shoulder. Chief Gabriel stood in front of me. Not fight today! That's what I said. All right, if that's the way you want it, we'll let it slide this time, but I'm warning you. Don't ever let this happen again. Not happen again? Good. I guess we understand each other. We understand! Very good. Now, if you coyotes would just stay where you are, Too bad. He not understand secret. Well, there's no chance of me getting out of there, so I want to go to the chief. You've figured out the secret? Huh. Oh, yes, very much. What did you figure out? Jeff glanced over both his shoulders and brought his mouth right next to him. Secret, too secret to tell. You got it all right. You sure did. We had a good laugh. We got about to find out that we were laughing at the same thing. That business about the secret was the perfect stroke, and it probably saved my life. In desperation, I had lucked into it. Turns out that coyotes are superstitious animals, even though they're known to be cunning and vigilant. That deal about the secret caught them just right and saved my hide. Actually, it did better than that. It made me kind of a celebrity in the tribe, and I was treated like a visiting dignitary. By everyone but Strauss, that is, and he continued to give me hateful glances and mutter under his breath every time our paths crossed. I couldn't blame him for being sore. I had won, and he had lost, and you can't expect everyone to be a good loser. As we say in the security business, show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser. Strauss had lost a big one, and I was confident that he would hate my guts forever. Even though there was a good chance that I would eventually become his brother-in-law. You know, when Missy had first mentioned that possibility, it hadn't struck me as a real good idea. I suppose at that time I was still thinking of going back home, back to program meat, the chickens, the Sioux, and the cowboys, my old job. But a couple of days in the Coyote village pretty much convinced me that I had found my true place in the world as a savage. Life and savage ain't too bad. I admit that I was raised with a natural prejudice against coyotes. Ma always told us that they were lazy and sneaky, undisciplined, and didn't have any ambition. But what chapter most about coyotes was that they ate rotten meat, and it made them smell bad. True, every word of it. But what she didn't tell us was that laziness and riotous living can be a lot of fun. I don't blame her for telling us that. I mean, she was trying to raise a litter of registered paper, blue ribbon, top-of-the-line cow dogs. And there's no better way to mess up a good cow dog than to let him discover that goofing off beats the heck out of hard work. I discovered it by accident, and once I had a taste of indolence, I loved it. I mean, all at once I had no responsibilities, no cares, no worries. When I woke up in the morning, I didn't have to wonder if my ranch had made it through another night, or if I'd get yelled at again for something I hadn't done. About a week after I joined the tribe, I made friends with two brothers named Rip and Snort. They were what you'd call typical good old boy coyotes. Filthy, smelled awful, not real smart, loved to fight and have a good time, and had no more ambition than a couple of fence posts. If Rip and Snort took a shine to you, you had two of the best friends in the world. They didn't happen to like your looks or your attitude. You were in a world of trouble. I got along. One evening, along towards sunset, they came around and asked if I wanted to go carousing. I was feeling refreshed since I slept a good part of the day. Got up around noon, ate a piece of rabbit that Missy had caught, then went back to bed. I was all rested up and said, sure, I'd love to go carousing. So off we went, me and Rip and Snort, on a big adventure. We went down the canyon, crossed that big sandy draw that cuts through there, then went on across some rolling country until we came to an old silage pit. I'd been by it many times, but I'd never taken the time to go into the pit and check things out. By the time I took over the ranch, the cowboys had quit feeding silage, so I didn't know much about it. One of the things I didn't know about silage was that it's fermented, which means that it's got some alcohol in it, which means that if a guy eats enough of it, his attitude about the world would begin to change. All those years I'd spent on the ranch, I never knew any of that. But Rip and Snort knew all about silence. Yes, they did. And they had made a well-packed trail into and out of the silage pit. So we started eating silage. It struck me as kind of bitter at first, but the more I ate, the less I noticed the bitterness. By George, after an hour of that, I thought it was sweet as honey. Well, we ate and we laughed and we laughed and we ate. And when it came time to leave, Rip and Snort had to drag me out of their bellies because I just couldn't get enough of that fine stuff. Out, we went single file down a cow path, Snort in the lead, me in the middle, and Rip on the caboose. Funny thing, that cow path kept wiggling around, and I had a devil of a time trying to stay on. I asked Rip about it, and he said he was having the same trouble. The path kept jumping around from side to side. I suspect that the silage had something to do with that, is what I suspected. Well, next thing I knew, Snort topped the rise and came to a sudden halt. Which caused I left Snort and Rip running into me because they didn't have a secret at that point. Stop here! Sing many song! Sing pretty! Sing loud! Teach on cow song! So we sat down on our haunches, threw back our heads, and started singing. Let's see if I can remember how that song went. We got up on the fire. Yeah, how they got up on we like to sing and follow. We crazy as a fool. We got on come on to see. We'll church our Sunday school. We just look at the fire, but we ain't nobody's fault. It was the Cracker Jack of a song. We ripped through it a couple of times until I had her down. Then we divided up. Snort took the bass, Rick carried the melody, and I got up on the high tenor. I never heard better song. It was one of them priceless moments in life when three very gifted guys come together and blend their talents and sort of raise the cultural standards of the whole damn world. And it was that good. We sang it 4 or 5 times. Then all at once, Snort's ears perked up and lifted his paw. He stopped and listened. Off in the distance. Yep. Something there about that. Yep. But for a minute I couldn't place it. Then it occurred to me that we were sitting on a spot just a quarter-mile north of ranch headquarters. That yapping was coming from Drover. I think Rip and Snort had took a notion to amble on down there and see if they could get into a fight. I had to explain that they couldn't run fast enough to get Drover into a fight, that it would be a waste of their time. Let me go down there and talk to him. He's no buddy of mine. We used to work together. Maybe he'll come back and sing with us. We could use another guy on baritone. They shrugged. Snort sat down and started scratching his ear. More fun fight, but singing okay too. We wait. So I trotted down the ranch. We ran a little bit from side to side and humming me just a worthless coyote. Say, that was a good song. When I was 20, 25 yards away, I slowed to a walk. I could see Drover up ahead of me. He was peering off in the distance. The little dope hadn't even seen me. I decided to stop and watch him for a minute. He was all bunched up in tents. Off in the distance, you could hear Rip and Snort laughing and belching and having a good time. He dropped his ear and listened for a minute. Then he'd give out, yip, yip, yip. Every yip, all 4 feet below my ground. Then he'd stop and listen again. He never saw me, never had the slightest notion that I was sitting 10 yards away from him, watching the whole show. This was my replacement, understand? The guy who'd taken over my job as head of ranch security. I didn't need anyone to tell me that the ranch had gone completely and absolutely to pot. What was that? Who's there? What's going on, son? He gave out his usual squeak, and in a flash he was eyeballing for the machine shed, squalling like a turpentine cat. He'd gone maybe 10, 12 yards when he slowed to a walk, then stopped. Hank, is that you? Uh-huh. It is? Uh-huh. How can I be sure? I thought you left the country. Well,
why don't you just trot your little self over here and see? Came real slow, a few steps at a time.
It sure sounds like you.
Son of a gun.
You're not fooling me, are you, Hank?
Get over here and quit messing around.
Okay. I want to be sure, that's all.
And jumped straight up into the air.
Hank, stop that. Don't do that to me. My nerves.
Drover, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What a pitiful excuse you are for a night watchman. I could have carried off half the chicken house and you never would have got the news.
I know it. I'm a failure. Every morning I wake up and say, here's another day for you to mess up, Drover. And I do. Every one of them. It hasn't been the same since you left, Hank.
I knew it wouldn't. I tried to tell them, but they wouldn't listen. I mean, you can't treat a good dog like a dog and expect to keep him.
Gosh, I wish you'd come back.
You can forget that, son, because it'll never happen. I found a better life. Be careful.
What's come over you, Hank? You look different. You smell different. You stink.
I joined the coyote tribe.
No!
That's right. If you had a brain in your head, you'd come along and join up with them, too. It ain't a bad life, let me tell you. He took a couple steps back.
I can't believe it. What would your mother say?
She'd say I was a turncoat and a traitor. So what? I tried the straight life. I did my job, and what did I get? Abuse, ingratitude, no thanks. Life's too short for that. I'll cast my lot with the outlaws of the world.
3 weeks ago, you were on the side of law and order, trying to catch the murderers. Now you're one of them.
That's right.
Oh, Hank, I can't take this. I used to admire you so much. You were my hero. I thought you were just the greatest dog in the world. Since I was a pup, I just wanted to be like you. Brave and strong, fearless,
Knock it off, Drover. I don't want to hear that stuff.
and dedicated to duty. I knew I could never be as good as you, but I wanted to try. You were my idol, Hank.
Cut it out, would you?
Come back home, Hanky. I need you. The ranch needs you. We all need you.
Kind of struck me in the heart to hear Drover say those things. Then, Rip and Snort called for me. Say, we tired wait.
Who's that?
Oh, some of my pals. Come on up the hill with me, Drover, and I'll show you a good time. Introduce you to my friends.
Are they drunk like you?
There's a little edge in his voice. He'd never talked to me like that before. Well, maybe they are, and maybe they ain't. Who cares? Back this morning.
I better get on back to the ranch. I'm on guard duty tonight.
You're on guard? Son, you're a sorry excuse for a guard dog, running for the machine shed every time you hear a sound.
I'm not going to run anymore, Hank. Somebody's got to protect the ranch. We can't depend on you anymore.
You'll run. You always have, you always will.
I ain't going to run.
Sure you will, and I can prove it. Boo! That don't prove a thing. When the time comes, when the chips are down, you'll run and hide.
No, I won't. And Hank, if you come with them, I won't run from you either.
He turned and started walking away. You always were a little chump.
I may be a chump, Hank, but I'm not a traitor. Goodbye.
Go on, you little dummy. Who needs you anyway? Sawed-off, stub-tail, self-righteous, little pipsqueak. Drover went on his way. I went on mine. On the way up the hill, I could hear the boys singing me just to worthless coyote again. Took my place between Rip and Snort and started belting out the song again. We went on like that all night long, singing and laughing and chasing mice. But it wasn't quite as much fun this time.
must have been a couple of days later that I was sitting on the edge of the cap rock, sunning myself and looking off in the distance. I'd been there most of the day, thinking about things and enjoying the quiet. The coyote village was awful noisy. Seemed that somebody was always in the midst of a squabble. When a husband and wife had a difference of opinion, they'd just, by George, had a knockdown, drag-out fight right there in front of everybody. Nobody ever seemed to get hurt in these brawls, and I guess they managed to solve their problems. But I could never get used to the noise of it. In the air. After one of them family fights, the air was full of fur. I could hardly breathe for the air. And it was the kids. There must have been 10 or 12 pups in the village. And let me tell you about coyote pups. Now, a dog pup is kind of cute. I'm not real fond of babies, understand, but even I have to admit that a little old cow dog pup is pretty cute. He'll be fat as a butterball, covered with silky hair, and when he looks up at you with those big soft eyes, you can't help but smile and say, "How's it going, kid?" Coyote pups ain't cute. They look mean, they sound mean, they act mean, and fellers, they are mean. They've got 2 jaws full of teeth that are as sharp as needles. Their idea of good clean fun is to slip up behind some unsuspecting somebody, me for instance, and just bite the heck out of his tail. As a rule, I'm a pretty good sport. I was a kid once myself, and I got into my share of mischief, but I can't get used to people biting my tail. I mean, there's something kind of special and private about a guy's tail. If he's got any pride at all, he tries to keep it nice, and he's a little fussy about scabs and bald spots and tooth marks and slobber and all that stuff. What I'm saying is that my tail ain't a play toy. But these kids, they'd sneak up behind me and sink their little needle teeth into my tail. There's some times I just growled at them. "Here, y'all all get out of here." Coyotes are a little slow about taking a hint. They came back and did it again, so I took sterner measures. Cuffed them. And what he did then, he bit me on the paw. Well, I wasn't going to take that off the darn kid, so I bit him on the scruff of the neck. Somehow worked his way around and got hold of my left ear. That got me all inflamed, don't you see? And I put the boy on the ground and was spanking some manners into him when his mama walked up. "You brute! Leave my junior alone!" Oh, I looked around just in time to get slapped across the mouth. "There, you bully!" I suppose I shouldn't have slapped her back, but I did. What? Right across the nose. Maybe you can teach that boy some manners. Chicken dog? Wild hag? She burst into tears and went bawling to her husband, saying I was just an animal and beat up her darn kid and had called her a wild hag. Her mouth, she was scrumptious, and here he came, all humped up and hair raised and yellow eyes a-flaming. I'd taken about all I wanted off Scrooge and his family, and I was ready to go into combat. But Missy and her father jumped in between us and averted a civil war. But the incident didn't do much to improve relations between me and Missy's brother. I had a feeling that sooner or later we were going to have a showdown. Funny thing about all this, them coyotes didn't mind chewing on each other. I mean, they were fighting all the time. But when I tried it, they didn't like it. Made me think that no matter how long I stayed there, they'd always think of me as an outsider. Anyway, I was sitting on the ledge, off to myself and away from the noise, when Missy came up behind me. She nuzzled me with her nose and ran her claws down my backbone. She knew I liked that. Something wrong? Uncle looks sad. Oh, it's nothing. I just wanted to be alone, I guess. Not enjoy another coyote? Well, you ever get tired of all the noise? All that fighting and yelling? That happy sound. When coyote happy, make bunch noise. When we married, be happy, make bunch noise too. I see, yes. Well, I guess we have that to look forward to, don't we?
Up come even more noise. Oh boy!
Oh boy.
Hunt not be sad. Missy, dearly, hunt me good. We have feast, special food just for Hunt.
I followed her into the village. We went to her parents' den. They were sitting out in front, and the old lady was pulling cockleburrs out of the chief's tail. Missy asked her mother if she would prepare a special meal just for me. She said she would. She left and was gone for 10, 15 minutes. I tried to make conversation with the old man, but it wasn't easy. He started talking about the old days, about the time he was a couple of rounds with a skunk. He seemed to think this story was hilarious. I thought it was moderately funny. The chief was still cackling at his own end of the story when the old lady returned, dragging in some horrible, stinking something or other. I turned to Missy. What's that?
Aged mutton.
Aged mutton. She nodded and smiled.
Special feast make Hunt forget sadness.
Aged mutton. No doubt it had been buried for a while. It was green, dotted here and there with white spots which turned out to be maggots. The smell alone would have taken the paint off a corral fence. The taste of such rot was too horrible to imagine. The old lady dragged it up and dropped it right at my feet. When she smiled at me, she looked an awful lot like her daughter, except that she had several teeth missing and some of that green stuff hanging from her lower lip.
Meat aged for many months, just right for Hunt now.
The old man threw back his head, let out a howl, and dived into it. The old lady did the same. Missy did the same. I took a deep breath, said a little prayer, and dove in too. Let's don't go into any details. It was bad. It was so bad that there are no words to describe it. I'll say no more. An hour later, I was lying down with my head over the cliff. I had emptied my body of everything but blood and a few bones. Missy stood over me, stroking my brow. She had been very nice about it. They all had been, even my future mother-in-law. She had decided that I had drunk some brackish water, and that's what had made me sick.
Feel better now?
Feel better, sort of.
Hunt like coyote feast, oh boy?
Boy,
Now Hunt make ready for big raid?
I raised up my head. No, that was the first I had heard about the raid. This was going to be my big chance to prove to Missy's ma and pa that I was worthy of their daughter. Scrooge was putting the deal together. A raid on the ranch. Along about dark, the coyote village came to life. Everybody was excited. Roast chicken! Roast cat! Oh boy! Even the kids were excited. They chased each other around, practiced howling, and played a game called Get the Dog. The idea of the game was that two kids played coyotes, and one played the guard dog. Coyotes squeezed the dog out in a fight, and then jumped it. I had played that game myself. Only when I played it, it hadn't been a game. And I'd been on the dog's side. I never thought it was much fun either. After the sun went down, Scrooge climbed up on a pile of rocks and gave a speech to the whole village. He was a firebrand and a rebel rouser, and he preached the kind of hot gospel them coyotes wanted to hear. Young rabbit run too fast, make coyote hard to catch. Calves run down home, coyotes have to dig, make tired too. But chicken easy, chicken nice and fast, sit on nest, not bite. Chicken plump and juicy. This night, everybody eat chicken. Cheer went up in the crowd. I was standing beside Missy, and she hooped and hollered along with the rest
watched me with a half smile on his face. When I didn't cheer with the rest of them, he said,
What you say, Hunk? Maybe you helped kill little white dog, huh?
maybe so, Scrunch. Maybe so. Then he led the crowd in singing Be Just a Worthless Coyote, which was everybody's favorite song and sort of the coyote national anthem. It brought tears to old Chief Guts' eyes. I guess it brought back memories of his younger days. When the song started, Rip and Snort came over where I was and wanted to harmonize. Tonight we went carousing. I tried, but much like singing. Rip and Snort bellered and howled and had themselves a big time. They were all excited about the raid. They got into an argument over which one was going to give Drover the worst whipping. Some of them swore at each other. They have a way of changing into mean old boys pretty quick. The singing stopped. It was time to start the raid. Scrunch led the whole village in a howl, and those of us who were going on the raid lined up in single file. Missy came over to tell me goodbye. Bring back more jelly to prove to everybody that we good coyote. Thanks, Missy. I'll do my best. Then we married. Have 7, 8 little pups. 7 or 8. Should be 8 now. 9, 10. Oh boy! She nuzzled me under the chin, stepped back, and gave me a smile. Gee, she had a pretty face. You know what? When she smiled, I saw her mother's face. Remember that aged one? Turned there run the occasion. Scrunch came down the hall and checked things out, giving orders to the men. When he came to me, he gave me a hard look.
Better not make mistake. Scrunch watch close.
You do that, Scrunch. You might even learn something. He gave me a sneer and went back to the front. The rest of the village cheering. We marched down the canyon path in a trot. Once we left the village, Scrunch passed the order for silence. Out of the valley, got on the cow trail, followed it south towards the creek. I didn't know what where Drover was, what he was doing right now. Had he heard the singing? Did he run to the machine shed, or was he out on patrol? I hoped for his sake that he was in the backest corner of the machine shed. Those coyotes were in danger. As we slipped along through the night, I started putting a few things together. It was pretty clear by this time that Scrunch was the one who had been responsible for the chicken murders. He'd been slipping down there by himself and killing 1 or 2 a night. And now he decided to launch a full-scale invasion and share the spoils of war with the rest of the coyotes. Honey, I solved the case. And now I was working for the other side. Life sure does play tricks on a guy. Makes it awful hard to plan for the future. Growing up, I never would have dreamed that I'd end up a chicken killer. I'm glad Mom wasn't around to see it. About 200 yards north of the ranch, Scrunch called a halt and gave the final orders for the attack. He told Rip and Snort to circle around and come in from the south, and sent another couple of guys over to the west. He hadn't given me any orders, and that was good. I figured I could lay low, stay out of the way, and show up when all the dust cleared.
You. Huh? You go with Scrunch. We get little white dog. Find out how bad you want sister.
Well, surely I don't deserve such an honor.
Not talk, only fight.
The others left, and Scrunch started sneaking towards the ranch. I felt sick. Things had gotten out of control. I hadn't wanted it to happen this way. Me against my own buddy Drover. In his own bungling way, Drover was a nice dog. We'd had our squabbles and differences, but we had some good times too. About 25 yards out, Scrunch stopped and dropped down into the grass. I squinted into the darkness and saw Drover standing beside the northeast corner of the machine shed. As you might expect, he wasn't looking in our direction. The little runt had no idea what was fixing to break loose. Laughing out of Scrunch's throat. raised a howl. Rover jumped in the air and faced the south. Let's see, shoot. Then the boys off to the west raised a howl. Rover faced that direction. Scrunch growled. Rover faced us. His head was cocked sideways, and one ear stood out. He still didn't see us. But he was beginning to get the picture. The ranch was surrounded. I kept waiting for him to run, but he didn't. Scrunch pushed himself up out of the grass. You go first. I watch. Me? Well, seems to me that his neck was harder than the young eyes. You go first, or I cut throat right here. I just thought there's no need to. I see what you mean. Yes, I'll go first. He stood up, scrunched threw back his head, and let loose the bloodiest howl I ever heard. Sent shivers all the way down to the end of my tail. That's how frightful it was. The shove, and the attack was on. Drover heard us coming. He started yipping and jumping up and down. He stood his ground. I could hear myself talking. Drover, while there's still time. My voice got louder. You got no chance, Drover. Don't try to be a hero. Next thing I knew, I was yelling, Drover, run for the shed. You're outnumbered. They'll kill you. Run for your life. The little mutt was so scared he was spinning in circles, jumping up and down at the same time. But he still didn't leave his post. This time I could see Rick and Snort sneaking up behind him. Over 2 eyes. They weren't like good old boys anymore. They had murder on their minds. Scrunch was screaming, Kill! Kill! All at once, something snapped inside my head. I felt wild and crazy. I headed straight for Drover. I'll never forget the look in his eyes. He was more than scared. He was bewildered. Didn't know what was happening to him. He turned to face my charge. As I flew past him and took aim for Snort, I said, This is it, son. Hell against Texas. Fight for your life. Snort busted her eyes and sent him rolling down the hill. That gave me just enough time to catch breath as he was making a dive for the back of Drover's neck. He hit midair and knocked him on his back. This time his watch had plowed Drover under. I was standing on top, ready to tear out his throat. I let him right in the middle of his back, got a bite on his right ear, and started chewing. Took his mind off Drover. He jumped straight up and pitched me off. I got to my feet. He got to his feet, and we faced each other. Call up your boys, Scrunch. Let's make it me and you, one-on-one. Chicken dog die for this. His ear went out, and I spit it out in his feet. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a light come on down at the house. That was my only hope. Onloper didn't hurry and get his pants on to grab his gun. I was a dead dog. Seems you lost a piece of one ear, Scrunch. You come a little closer, I'll work on that other one so's they'll match. Scrunch cut his eyes towards Rick and Snort. Get him! Rick and Snort gave me kind of a mournful look. It was decision time. Had to choose between an old drinking buddy and their own flesh and blood. Get him! They licked their lips and swallowed and glanced at each other. And they chose flesh and blood. They started creeping towards me. Drover, keep them off my back, son. We're finished. Drover squeaked. He was too scared to talk. Rick and Snort and the other 2 coyotes started closing in on me. Oh, stupid dog. Stupid dog. Hey, with life. Could be right, Scrunch, but you've got it to do. He was totally surrounded, and it was every man for himself. I figured I might as well leave this old life with another piece of Scrunch's ear, so I made a dive at him. We collided and went up on our hind legs. I boxed him across the nose, and he boxed me right back. I clawed his lip, and he clawed mine. I went for his ear, and he went for mine. We chewed and snapped and snarled and growled. Though Scrunch was a little surprised that a cow dog could give him such a tussle, I was. was holding my own until they jumped me from behind. 2 or 3 of them didn't get a good count, but it was plenty enough to finish me off. They wrestled me down, throwed me on my back, and pinned me to the ground. Strunks walked up and straddled me, showing his big, sharp teeth. Now you die. My throat. I heard St. Peter above his horn. St. Peter's horn had an odd kind of sound. Instead of saying toot toot, as you would expect, it said baloo. And it made fire lit up the sky, and something went whistling over our heads. Shucks, that wasn't St. Peter at all. It was High Loper, and he was standing on the back porch blasting away with his pump shotgun. Archer just fitted my throat around his jaw and was fixing to remove it when the artillery opened up and threw his head up into the air. Scrooge, hurry! Kill dog fast! Scrooge was going for the throat and in for a quick kill when the second load of shots fired. Loper had found his range, and he was shooting a full load of number 7 bird shot about evenly through the crowd. You never heard such yipping and squalling. Them coyotes were jumping around like crickets in a shoebox, knocking each other down, trying to get out of the way. All but Scrooge. He backed away real slow. Another time, Unc. We meet again. Yeah, psycho man. This thing. Come up on the spur of the moment with a sore throat.
In 2 miles, take exit 121 toward East I-20 East.
That's what nothing is busted. I come through the fight in pretty good shape, all things considered. Loper came running up the hill, slipping shells into his shotgun. He hadn't taken time to put on his jeans, God bless him, which probably saved my life. All he had on was a pair of brown and white striped boxer shorts, his cowboy boots, and a t-shirt with 3 holes in it, and some window grease. Legs looked awful pale and skinny sticking out of them boxer shorts. Dang coyotes! He looked at me, and this next part is kind of shocking, so prepare yourself. He looked at me, and choked up today, and he smiled. That's right, he smiled at me, Hank the Cowdog. I mean, I was just, by George, overwhelmed by it. In my whole career, I couldn't remember Loper ever smiling at me. Hank, you've come back home. He laid down the shotgun, came over and threw his arms around me and gave me a big hug. By golly, it's good to have you. I was face. He drew back and wrinkled his nose. Dog, you stink. Where
In half a mile, take exit 121 toward East I-20 East.
About then, Sally Mae came up the hill, tying the strings on her housecoat and pushing the hair out of her eyes, which were red and puffy. What is it? What's wrong? Fire, son. Old Paco. I bet they were trying to get into the chicken house. But
Take exit 121, then keep left at the fork.
And he and Drover. Where's Drover? That was a good question. I kind of forgot about him in all the excitement. Then Sally Mae gave a cry. Oh no! I think he's not moving. He's just lying there.
Keep left at the fork.
Security business. You can't afford to let your emotions get the best of you. I mean, it's a tough business, and you have to be prepared for the worst. I considered myself pretty muchly hard-boiled, but...
Merge onto East I-20 East, then turn right onto Southeast Loop 338. Turn right onto Southeast Loop 338.
The little guy had done his best to protect the ranch.
Continue on Southeast Loop 338 for 3/4 of a mile.
And now, we all went over to him. He didn't move a muscle, not even a hair. And it was pretty clear to me that he was, well, dead. A big tear came out of my eye and rolled down my nose. I had to turn away. I couldn't stand the look anymore. Loper bent down, and there was a long silence. His heart's still beating. He's still alive. Oh, thank goodness. Actually, I can't see anything wrong with him. He's got a nick on his nose, and one ear's been chewed on, but other than that, he looks all right. Let's take him into the house. I'll make him a nice little bed and try to get some warm milk down him.
Loper gathered him up in his arms, and they started down the hill. I just happened to be looking at Drover when, all at once, one eye popped open. He glanced around and closed it again. The little runt was half-stepping is what he was doing, and he wasn't about to miss
In
out
a quarter
on
mile,
something.
use the right lane to take the I-20 ramp to Midland Airport.
Maybe he fainted or something in the heat of battle. Sounds like something he'd do, but I could see that he wasn't feeling no pain. It took him 2 whole days to get over his craving for warm milk in a soft bed, and he probably could have strung out another day or two, only he'd beat on the
Use the right lane to take the I-20 ramp, then turn right onto West Highway 80 East.
heading up.
Hi, Hank. What's going on?
I was working on another case and didn't really want to be disturbed. Hello, half-stepper. What's going on is that some of us have to work for a living so that others of us can...
Turn
attend
right
to
onto
the
West
milk
Highway
truck.
80 East.
He shrugged and gave me a silly grin.
I'm feeling much better now, thanks.
I'll bet.
What you working on?
Glanced
In
over
a quarter mile, turn right.
There's something funny going on around here, Drover. Look at these tracks. I pointed to the tracks, but he didn't look. Tracks are down here in the dirt, son. That's where you find most tracks on the ground.
Hank, tell me something. Did you really join up with the coyotes? I mean, did you really think you could live with them?
I walked a short distance away, and for a minute I didn't answer. Drover, if I tell you something, will you swear to keep it a secret? He bobbed his head. No, I mean you've got to swear an oath. He raised his right paw.
I swear an oath, Hank. My lips are sealed.
Okay, I guess I can trust you. You know what undercover work is?
Sort of.
Well, that's what I was doing. See, we weren't getting anywhere with the chicken house murders, and I figured the only way we could crack the case was for me to infiltrate the coyote tribe. It was risky. I knew there was a good chance I'd never come back alive, but it had to be done.
No fooling.
That's right. And it had to be top secret. I mean, I couldn't even let you in on it. If them coyotes had ever suspected a thing, it would have been curtains for this old dog.
Wow. Weren't you scared?
No. Well, a little bit. Actually, the toughest problem was keeping the women away.
The women?
Right. Drover, you won't believe this, but they was actually fighting over me. I mean, it got embarrassing.
Turn
after
right,
a while.
then you will arrive at your destination.
These 2 beautiful women, I'll tell you about it some other time. Right now, we've got another case to crack. Now, look at these tracks. What do you make of them?
Well, they were made by an animal. And I'd say the animal walked right past here and left those tracks in the dirt.
So far, so good. Keep going.
That's all I see, Hank. I'm stumped.
Okay, now listen.
You've arrived.
Them's badger tracks. While we were busy fighting off the whole coyote nation, a badger slipped onto the ranch, and I've got an idea that he's still around.
You mean, if we follow the tracks, we'll find him?
That's correct.
Uh-oh. Badgers are pretty tough.
Yes, that's true, but duty's duty. If we start letting badgers in here, before you know it, they'll try to take the place over. Come on, Drover. We've got work to do.
Badgers have big claws, Hank.
You leave the claws to me. I'll go in the first wave, and then you jump him from behind. And darn you, if you run off and leave me again, I don't know what I'll do, but you won't like it.
Okay, Hank, I'll be right behind you.
I put my nose to the ground and started following the trail. It led around the saddle sheds and through the garden. Reading the signs, I saw where Mr. Badger had stopped in the garden and dug up a couple of worms or bugs. I continued east, following the trail through the gate, past the gas tanks, up the hill, and right to the yard gate. This is worse than I thought, Drover. He's in the yard. That doesn't leave us much choice. This could get nasty. Could be a fight to the death.
Who's dead?
In this business, you never know. You just have to get best for the ranch. Come on, let's move out. We hopped over the fence. I got down in my stalking position and picked up the trail again. The scent was getting stronger now. It was real strong. Badgers have musk glands, and they leave a heavy scent. Suddenly, I saw him.
hiding in a bunch of flowers. I froze. Drover ran into me. This is it. Good luck. I crept forward 2 more steps, went into my attack position, and sprang. Suspended in the air over the flower bed, I got a good look at the enemy. It suddenly occurred to me that badgers aren't black with 2 white stripes running down the middle of their backs. They don't have a small head with beady little eyes or a long bushy tail. It was a skunk. I had been duped. I tried to change course in midair, but it was too late. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Drover jump over the yard fence and head for the machine shed. What followed was entirely predictable. I landed right in the middle of the scoundrel. He fired. The air turned yellow and poisonous. My eyes began to water, and I gasped for breath. Sally Mae's south window happened to be open. Was that my fault? I mean, had I gone through the house that morning opening all the windows? Of course not. But on this ranch, rule number 1 is that, when in doubt, blame Hank. I ran for my life and rounded the corner of the house just as Sally Mae came boiling out the back door. She was armed with a broom and took a swat at me as I flew past. My eyes were stinging so badly that I got to understand that I could hardly see and was having trouble catching my breath. The back porch door was open, and you might say that I ran into the utility room, where Sally Mae had just taken a basket of clean clothes out of the washing machine. Was it my fault that she happened to be washing clothes that day? Get out of my house, you stinking dog! Well, as I've said before, every dog in this world isn't cut out for security work. It requires a keen mind, a thick skin, and a peculiar devotion to duty. I mean, you put in 16, 18 hours a day. You're on call day and night. Your life is on the line every time you go out on patrol. You're doing jobs that nobody else wants to do because of the danger, etc. You make the world a little safer, a little better. You take your satisfaction where you can get it, in knowing that you're doing the job right. The very people you're protecting won't understand. They'll blame you when things go wrong. But that's the price of greatness, isn't it? And if you were born to be a cow dog, it's all part of a day's work.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.
on the food truck?
Conference.
The conference? All right, you'll go right over there.
I do apologize for being late. Thank you.